So, hello and welcome everybody to this, the very special super duper holiday edition of 1,000 Paths to a Career in Arbitration. For those who don't know me yet, I'm Mandy Lee, the founder of Careers in Arbitration, and it's my job basically to introduce our host with the most, and then she's going to introduce another host with the most. We've got all the most hosting possible. It's becoming like a Dr. Seuss sort of production, this. Lots of rhyming. All right. So as always, I have the pleasure of introducing Jessica Rado, the architect and host of our fabulous webinar series. Jessica is a litigation and arbitration attorney based primarily in New York and Italy, although more in New York at the moment. She's a member of the Moot Alumni Association core team, where she serves as an editor of the Vindobono Journal, and she's also one of the coaches of the Fordham Law School Vismoot team. That's everything from me. That was all I wanted to do, so I'm basically just here otherwise to make a few bad jokes and to cheer everybody on as you participate in our fabulous holiday quiz. So it just remains for me to say thank you as always to Jess for all her hard work on this program, and thank you too to my fabulous friend Chris for giving up some of his Friday to join us today. So folks, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to keep Chris's bio super short. First of all, because he does way too many things for me to list here. And second, because in between our trivia questions, I'm going to ask him some questions about his career and about his current role. So we're going to get to know him a little bit more as we get on. But suffice it to know that Chris Campbell is a fantastic person. He is a lawyer based in Italy. He's an in-house at Baker Hughes, American, but now fully European, I would say. And he spends his time, as we have learned today, between Italy and Portugal. I'm not going to go any further. I am going to be the tech person today. So I'm going to try and get the trivia quiz up, and we're going to let Chris roll with it and ask you some of our questions. So bear with me 1 second while I try to put this up, and we'll get it going.
All right. Well, as the screen is coming into effect and as Jessica's putting that there, setting us up for our quiz that we're going to have today, you know what it's starting to feel like? It's starting to feel a lot like Quizmas. And that is what we're going to be doing with you today. As you can see right there on the slide, that is the title of our time together today, 1,000 Paths to a Career in Arbitration, a holiday quiz featuring yours truly, Chris Campbell. So what we're going to do today, we've got 4 series of questions that we're going to be asking you, several questions in each. We're going to give you just a few moments. I guess Jessica will tell us exactly how much time to answer each question, but they're not overly complicated. They're multiple choice. And so as we go through each, you'll have a chance to answer what the question is. And, well, I don't know that we're keeping score, but if we are keeping score, there will be someone with the most amount of points here at the end. The questions, especially at the beginning, have to do with arbitration. And we're going to focus in on some of the trivia that you may know or not know about the arbitration. And as I understand, in much in a more personal sense, I think in between each of these series, you're going to hear questions and answers from me. So, you know, well, for me, about me. And from me, I guess. I'll be answering these questions. So anyway, without further ado, you see the QR code there. If you've got a phone, a mobile device of some kind, go ahead and use that to scan. And Jessica, is that how they're going to be answering questions? All right. Well, look at me figuring out the tech. You
should be able to just use the QR code, or you go to menti.com and you use the code up here, 16263908. And the questions are going to pop up as we go through them, and you should be able to just select your answer directly on your phone. It should also work on a browser if you don't want to use your phone. But just take a few minutes, let us know when you're all set, and we'll get going. Well, that's right. So this is your official 1-minute countdown. We're going to wait until, I guess, a little after the 14th minute has transpired. I'm going to filibuster for a little bit while you have a chance to scan this, and we'll hopefully get set up. What I'm going to ask that you do is, once the clock turns over to 14 minutes, that you take a moment and let us know if you are not able to get in. Let us know, and we will give you some troubleshooting advice to the best that we can.
And we'll get started just here in just a moment. So we've still got some time here. Hope everyone has good holiday plans. I can't wait. I'm going to the States next week, and I'm going to eat a bunch of Southern delicacy food for the holidays, including fried chicken, sweet tea, pecan pie, all of those types of things. And most important is folks that will follow, well, briefly, and look, we'll take another 30 seconds. It's your 30-second warning. So let us know if you have not been able to use the QR code or get linked on. For those that know me, I'm always talking about the great state of South Carolina, which is where I'm from and where I will be for the holidays. And I'm a big fan of those South Carolina Gamecocks, whether that be the football team, track and field basketball, women's basketball, especially. And of course, I'm one of the coaches for their Vismoot team. So if you are a Moody and you do Vismoot type stuff, I hope to see you in a pre-moot or in Vienna. And otherwise, you can reach out on LinkedIn and say hello, and we can talk about international arbitration stuff. Okay, I filibustered enough. Hopefully, you have had an opportunity to scan the QR code or click the link. And without further ado, let's begin. Let's start with the basics. How many countries are party to the New York Convention? Is it A, 195, B, 172, C, 165, or D, 183? Take 10 seconds, or how much time are we giving folks? 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds.
Let's just see. I think we only have a few people. Let's give them, I don't know, 20 seconds. Is that enough?
Okay. We're going to say 15 to 20 seconds. All right. I have a timer here. And you know what? I can continue. I can do mini filibusters, not even as long as the last one. And they won't always be about South Carolina. I guarantee you that.
We don't mind those. We don't mind them.
So I think we've had enough time now. We'll give you a 5-second runoff. Make your selection if you haven't already. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And are we revealing the answer?
Yes.
And the answer is, as the majority says, B. 172 countries are parties to the New York Convention. That's a big party. All right. So on to the next one. All right. Which country was the latest signatory to the New York Convention? Staying right there with the New York Convention. So same fashion, go ahead and make your selections now. And we've got Belize, Iran, Timor-Leste, and Grenada. So make your selections now, and we will let you know what the answer is here momentarily. And next one. So I've been filibustering here, but I'm going to actually loop in Mandy and Jessica on this. Well, Jessica has to drive, but maybe Mandy, and ask her about her holiday plans during the next question. And look, ooh, we've got a distribution of 3. So that means one person hasn't voted yet. And here we are in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And don't you guys be Googling, by the way. Maybe we need to have 20 seconds. Some of y'all might have ChatGPT. Okay, the answer is Timor-Leste, East Timor. All right, and it was a country, it joined in January 17th of 2023, so last year, and they're the most recent signatory. Okay. Arajit, oh no, you can't get the link. All right, sorry. We will try and troubleshoot for you in the background. So maybe someone you can observe. Minty.com. Yes, go to minty.com if you're able to. Okay, what year marked the establishment of the ICC International Court of Arbitration? And here you go. Go ahead and mark your answer now. 1919, 2020, 1920, 1923, 1945, or 1956. And you've got 10 seconds from now. And Mandy, in the meantime, what do you got for the holidays?
Well, my plan, Chris, if I can ever get round to booking it, is to go to El Hierro in the Canary Islands, which has the distinction of being fairly sparsely populated and extremely difficult to get to. So I decided to spend the holidays losing myself in a remote part of the Canary Islands. So I'm
Fair
hoping
enough.
to do that. And then I'm heading back to see some family in Shrewsbury and to continue my tradition of getting in a freezing cold pool on New Year's Day and sort of washing the old year away.
Perfect. Well, look, one moment. The answer is, as the majority said, 1923. And that sound like fun holidays, Mandy. That sounds like a good time. So, if you can math a little bit, the 100th year of the ICC was just last year in 2023. So that brings us to the next question. What is the oldest arbitral institution? Is it the LCIA, Is it the PCA? Is it the ICSID? Is it the ICC? You've got 15 seconds on the clock from this point. Very good, very good. We see some answers coming in here. No one's taking
I
the
think this
ICSID.
one's hard.
Are we sure it's not the ICSID? Maybe it is the ICSID. I don't know. Could be. Sounds like an old institution. Okay, no one bought my bus string. The answer is the LCIA, the London Court of International Arbitration. This one is one that, could be a little bit of misdirection. Could be a little misdirection. Mine didn't work. No one thought it was ICSID. A little bit of trivia about how nerdy I am. Let's go back to the previous slide for just a sec. Because I'm such an arbitration nerd, the laptop that I had when I was doing my LLM on international arbitration, I actually called the ICSID because I'm a nerd.
I love that.
Anyway.
I'm also a nerd, but my laptop is just named anyway. So there's no arbitration theme to it. I'm just going to admit to being a nerd anyway.
Yes, very well, very well. To the next one, which institution administers arbitration under the Unzentral arbitration rules? Very hard question. Great institution, great folks that work there and staff the Unzentral institution. And you've got 15 seconds. Yes, yes, a very difficult one. Very interesting. I can hear minds and gears turning. Sounds like reindeer. That might be Santa.
Seems like our audience has no doubts.
Yeah, right? That's a very bold prediction. Bold prediction. All right, 5-4. All right, and the audience, y'all, you guys weren't fooled here. All right, so the answer is D, as you can imagine. Any arbitral institution or ad hoc tribunal, which can be tricky. Sometimes folks think that there is a institution waiting around at Unzentral for your disputes, and they are not. Don't try and send them things. They won't take your case. Okay, so I think now the tables are turning a little bit because I think the question actually turns to me. Who's asking me the question?
I'm asking you the questions. I'm just going to leave the next section here just so we don't have any questions pending. And I do have one question for Chris, just because we do want our audience to get to know you. And my question is very simple. Chris, you're currently working in-house for Baker Hughes. Can you tell us a little bit more about this role and how you get to work on arbitration cases in this in-house position?
Sure, glad to talk about all of that. So, in this role as an in-house counsel, generally, a lot of you may know that in-house lawyers manage arbitration, mediation, litigation, and legal disputes for the company if you're in that sort of role. In a lot of companies, it's a little bit more of a passive role where you take your dispute and give it to external counsel and sort of let them deal with it. You sort of check in with them to manage the costs, but you kind of stay hands off. Baker Hughes is the opposite of that. We have a really long line and tradition of active litigators that have been in this role and they currently sit in this seat. So what that means is that we're very proactive in working through the cases. So we work shoulder to shoulder oftentimes with our external counsel, meaning that we draft pleadings, that we often will appear in proceedings, arguing alongside our external counsel or making statements. And in some cases, we will do from end to end the mediation, the negotiations, or even really smaller or more mid-sized arbitration. So it's a good way that we keep our skills sharp, that we stay on our toes and stay at the forefront of the developments in the industry. That's what my work looks like day to day. Oftentimes, because you will see me at various events, I will often give perspective from an in-house counsel vantage point, as well as giving some insights from the energy and construction sector in specific. And well, as you can imagine, the things that we talk about are from our perspective, not only as in-house counsel, but as an entity that is Baker Hughes. And so that's the energy that we try to bring in resolving claims for the company and in our interest.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. I'm gonna let you take it away with the second section, and now we're gonna talk geography.
Absolutely. That was I don't think that one answer could have fit in a multiple choice. That was like longer than A, B, or C.
I would say so, yes.
In any case, on to geography. All right, let's talk. Which arbitration institution is based in The Hague? And you've got 20 seconds on the clock. Is it the ICC, the LCIA, PCA, or AAA? And in case you don't know what those stand for, in reverse order, the American Arbitration Association, good old USA, the Permanent Court of Arbitration at the PCA, the London Court of International Arbitration in London, as the name implies, or the International Chamber of Commerce. Which one is it? And it is, as the majority says, the PCA. Great, good job. No one was fooled by that one. And on to the next one. According to the ICC 2023 statistics, which of these countries was not one of the 5 seats of our top 5? No, reading is hard. Which of these countries was not one of the top 5 seats of arbitration in 2023? So there you go. 20 seconds on the clock. Was it France? Was it Brazil? Was it Switzerland or Singapore? It's definitely one of these 4 that was not the top 5 seats. Negatives. Got to think a little bit counterintuitively.
We got to look harder, you know.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer is France.
Actually,
I'm sorry, Singapore. My bad. I misread my own notes here, so sorry about that. The answer was Singapore. And I think it's
France, UK, Switzerland, US, and Brazil remain the top 5 seats of arbitration. And so Singapore was not.
Yes.
But Chris is just trying to keep us on our toes by saying France.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Everybody will go, no, it was not France.
I was going to get I felt an angry email coming my way. In fact, France, Singapore, is there really any difference? Are they not the same place? Please. Okay. French and Singapore, people respectively, do not throw your slings and arrows. Clearly a bad joke, but the answer is Singapore. This might be a rare occasion where the audience actually beats the host. Man, I'm down 1. All right. What arbitral institution handled the most new cases in 2023? 20 seconds on the clock. Was it the ICC? Was it the Singapore International Arbitration Center? Was it the Permanent Court of Arbitration? Or was it the SCC? I always like the SCC because it sounds like the SEC, which is my football conference or my sports conference. And so I don't know, there's got to be a logo, a marketing thing in there where that could like cross brand. That'd be hilarious. Oh, who's going to the playoffs? The SCC. Those fine arbitrators over there taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. What a game. What a game. Okay, so here we are in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Again, I like the last minute change. The ICC is the answer. That was game time decision. I get it. All right. All right. Okay. And on to the next one. A tricky one. Where is CTAC based? Is it China? Is it Chile? Is it Congo or Russia? And you've got 10 seconds. Don't Google it. Don't you do it. Don't do it. You stop it. I saw you. Look, I saw you trying to Google it because someone didn't know what CTAB meant. And the answer is China. Yes, very well. That's a tough, like I said, it's a tricky one. Okay. Next, which country allows for foreign law firms to open branches in its territory only since March of 2023? Is it France? Is it Singapore? Is it India? Or is it South Africa? You've got 15 seconds. And this one is a tricky one too. That's right. So 5 seconds on the clock. And if you said it is the proud country of India, you'd be correct. Good job. Okay. So, all right, let's make it fun. Okay, virtual quizzes at the holidays and a minion. Minions are always so funny. Always make me laugh. Okay.
Before we make it fun, we're going to make it fun with you, Chris. I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
My first question to you is, you have worked all over the world. You worked in the US, you worked in China, you're now in Italy. What are some things that you've learned by working in different cultures and especially in very different legal cultures?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think if you are someone that's listening to this and you're thinking about how you want to have an international career, I think the biggest single piece of advice that I can give you is maybe it's twofold. It's being flexible and being open-minded in terms of learning about and experiencing new cultures. No matter where you go in the world, if you were leaving where you're from, even going maybe to the next province, next state over, let alone hopping countries, you're definitely going to meet people that think differently than you, that approach things in different ways. And so if you sort of say, take this rigid attitude of, well, the way we do things is the only way it can be done, you're going to be in for sort of a, thanks, Nelson, for dropping in. See you around. You're going to be in for a rude awakening. You're going to have a bad time. And I think that that can lead to a lot of awkwardness. It can lead to a lot of misunderstandings. And frankly, to the second part of that question, when it comes to the way things are done in a legal context, it can lead to substantive legal challenges and problems. Something as simple as, well, in the United States, when we need to make a payment pursuant to a settlement agreement, it's done one way versus it being done with, a stamp tax or extra duties or other regulatory things. If you just go and make the assumption that the way that you do it is the only way that it's to be done, you could find yourself, letting your client down or messing up a procedure. But I think for folks that are thinking about international careers, that's one of the best parts, right? I think is learning about new cultures, is about experiencing these new things and getting to, broaden your cultural palette, so to speak. I thoroughly enjoy whenever I get to go to a new country or new jurisdiction and get to see how they do things there. And sort of sometimes I even take, from a legal practice perspective, I take some of those things back with me. And so we apply them to our own practice areas. So to answer the question, or to sum it up, I think, what have I learned? I've learned those two principles of being flexible and open-minded. And I think there's a lot of cultural nuances that one can take. And I won't go into US, Italy, and China specifically, because that would take much more time than we have. But those are my major takeaways from that first question.
Thank you, Chris. That was really helpful. And sort of building on that, I have kind of a more pointed question. 1,000 Paths is for aspiring practitioners, for young practitioners, and for everyone who's trying to and looking for mentors and connections in the field. So one of the, I think, main differences that one should be aware of is how it is different in different cultures to approach more senior people. So for example, in the US, we tend to be very direct. Professionals are generally friendly. You can just email a partner at a big law firm, ask for coffee, ask for a call, and it's just normal. If they have the time, they'll do it. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure that this applies anywhere else in the world. Might be very different in Asia. It certainly is different in Italy. I can vouch for that. So what would be your advice, and how can a young practitioner navigate these differences, and how can one network effectively, being mindful of these cultural differences in different places?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I'll start it with a little anecdote to kind of show you both ends of the spectrum. First, what I was doing, I was a first-year law student, and I was doing a study at the Gray's Inn of Court in London. And part of that tradition that they had there was that they would let first-year students kind of like eat side by side with high court judges. And I specifically remember, like, one of the high court judges had said, well, if you'd like, you can come, sit with me and like listen, in on some of the arguments that we're having, which I was like, of course, that's something I want to do. And so, oh, well, I'm thinking the American sense. And so when I say, oh, well, that sounds awesome, Judge, can I have your email and we can set it up? And to me, first year law student, that's just, how else would you do it? And he kind of just goes, no, he doesn't even give an explanation. He just goes, no. And his assistant, kind of whispers, no, shoot me an email. Here's the thing. And, explain this whole procedure that kind of needed to happen. But, for me, it was kind of just a little bit, I'm thinking of from the US context, we would do things a little bit more informally. And it's okay to ask a judge something like that. On the other side of the spectrum, I will tell you one of me not putting my foot into my mouth. When I went to Lisbon for the first time, my partner works at a Portuguese law firm. And so, I, by happenstance, wanted to meet some other practitioners in the city. And so one of the people that I'd reached out to happened to be her boss. And so I just reached out and said, hey, could we get coffee sometime? And so he said, sure. And so I ended up meeting him at the office for coffee, unbeknownst to my partner. And so my partner is walking down the hall and she sees me in her boss's office, kind of just sitting having coffee in a pastel de nata. And she's like, what's going on here? What happened? And of course, it worked out in that way. And so I give a US example and a European example to illustrate, or not a US, but a UK and a European example. Man, I'm just saying that continuously incorrectly. A UK versus a Portuguese example of two different cultures sort of colliding in that way, or having very different approaches. But it goes exactly to this sort of way that things are done in some parts of Asia. I think what you have to do is consider two main factors once again. One, what is the cultural norm of where you are? And B, is there some different treatment that you might have specifically because you're not from that jurisdiction? So in the Portuguese example, as I'm told on the back end, the reason why that was so okay and fine and not seen as strange is because I was an American. And so they know that Americans like to kind of do things that way. And I was afforded a little bit of grace. But typically, a more junior lawyer wouldn't just show up at a managing partner's office for that sort of discussion. But, there is something to be said there too. So sometimes it's okay to take, a calculated chance like that. It wasn't a really disrespectful thing or risky sort of thing to do. But, if you don't have another way of contacting somebody, if you do so respectfully and humbly, you might be surprised that they might be willing to sit with you and meet and talk and do those types of things. And of course, as many of us are connected on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a great way to start a conversation to see. And finally, if you see someone at an event and, have a chance to talk with them, they remember being law students and being younger early in their career too. And there's nothing wrong with just saying, hey, Miss or Mr. So-and-so, I've read your work or I'm familiar with your work. I'm a fan or I'd like to talk with you about it sometime. And as long as you do it again with an air of humility, most folks are happy to have a chat if they've got the time.
Great tips, Chris. Thank you so much. Well, while we let our host have a sip of water because I keep making him talk, everybody get ready back with your phones or your computers, whatever you're using to join our questions. If you've just joined, because I've seen a few people popping up, you just go to menti.com and you put in this code right here, 16263908, and you should be able to see the questions. You're going to be able to participate. And with that, Chris, back to you.
All right, so let's have some fun. And the first bit of fun we're going to have is going to be of the Shakespearean variety. And we're going to ask you a question, which is, which famous Shakespearean play includes an early reference to arbitration? 20 seconds on the clock. Is it Macbeth? Is it The Merchant of Venice? Is it Hamlet or A Midsummer Night's Dream?
Bonus question, Chris, is which play am I going to see David Tennant perform in tonight out of those four?
Which one?
The one that we don't talk about in the theater.
Oh, Bruno. I'm joking, of course. So the answer to the question is The Merchant of Venice, at least as far as this trivia question goes. But that's a good one to Google if you don't know the answer to that question. It will make you feel very cultured and very aware of theater if you learn the answer to which one Mandy is going to see, which you cannot say in a theater. So in The Merchant of Venice, in the play, Portia acts as an arbitrator in the famous court scene where she resolves the dispute between Shylock and Antonio over the pound of flesh. Her intervention and creative interpretation of the contract highlight the principles of fairness and equity, which are central to arbitration. So if you answer The Merchant of Venice, good job, well done. Second or next question in this series, which international arbitration professor sang at the 2023 Wismut in Vienna?
There's also a bonus question here. One of the people on the call played at the 2023 Wismut in Vienna. I'm sorry, it was 2024. That's actually my bad.
Yes, that's true. Well, I mean, I guess if you sang along, that would technically be true with Harry Fleckner. But you've got 5 seconds left on the clock. This is a very difficult question. All have beautiful singing voices, I'm sure. But there was one who took the stage in Vienna earlier this year, and it was Ingeborg Schwenza. She sang the CISG, which was a take on You Really Got Me, but applied to arbitration. And, well, if you don't know, now you know. Yours truly played the clarinet on stage and did the backup vocals for one of the songs as well. So it was great to be part of the mysterious rock stars. And maybe we'll be making a reprisal in the spring. Who knows? Too early to tell, really.
Well, we'd be excited to hear you again.
Yes, very fun. Thank you so much. And so on to the next one. All right. In which movie does the main character convince 634 plaintiffs to agree to arbitration? 20 seconds on the clock. Was it My Cousin Vinny? Was it Philadelphia? Was it Aaron Brockovich? Or The Devil's Advocate? 10 seconds to go.
I'm
All good
seeing
movies,
less answers lately. Are the questions too hard in the make it fun part? Come on.
though. They might be. Some of these movies folks may not have seen. Okay. And in 3, 2, 1, the majority rules once again. Aaron Brockovich. Correct. Easy. And on to the next one. Which celebrity triggered a diversity debate after arguing that arbitration would be unfair because only 2 of the more than 200 arbitrators proposed were African American? Was it LeBron James? Was it Ho Jay-Z? Was it Lizzo? I hang my head, or Kevin Hart? And in 15 seconds on the clock. Yeah. Complaining to the refs is something LeBron would do. So, I mean, it's not a bad bet. Lizzo, I don't know if Lizzo's got any arbitrations. Kevin Hart, maybe. And 5, 4, 2, 3, 2, 1. All right, allow me to reintroduce myself. It is Jay-Z. All right. And on to the next one, and this pays off the foreshadowing at the top. Which of the following TV shows features episodes focusing on arbitration? Was it Star Trek, The Next Generation, Stranger Things, The Mandalorian, This Is the Way, or was it Wednesday? This is a tough one. If yet again, another nerdy reference. Okay, we've got a good distribution. Stranger Things and arbitration. Yeah, arbitration is strange. You've got the Mandalorian. I could see the Mandalorian. This is the way. Yoda. Yeah, okay. And no one for Wednesday. No one thinks the Addams Family is finding itself in an arbitration. Okay. Well, the answer is Star Trek: The Next Generation. They boldly went where no one went before. Science fiction that had arbitration. All right. So then we go to another question, I think, from me, perhaps, about me, to me.
Yes. Before we move on to the career focus questions, one more question for Chris. Chris, you've mentioned actually today that in addition to your work as counsel, you also coach the Vismut teams. I believe you have 2 different teams in South Carolina. We know that you played at the Vismut opening, and you also host the popular podcast, Tales of the Tribunal. So my question to you is, what is your favorite among of the many projects that you're nurturing, and can you tell us something about it?
Well, look, you can never pick one amongst all of your children. But, I think the Vismut has definitely been a really special project for me. It's where I met my partner. It's where, we've started the Vismut teams at Charleston School of Law and South Carolina School of Law with the hope of increasing CISG and international arbitration in the state of South Carolina. And it's opened up so many opportunities and given me so much. So the VIS is really special to my heart. Tales of the Tribunal is, I guess the one that I have spent the most of myself, the most where you get to meet my personality on a weekly basis when we're in season. And it's how I've been really active with the field. So I think not only because you get to hear my literal voice through the podcast, but I think it's been a huge mechanism for me in getting to share that voice in the arbitration community. So huge appreciation for the Vismut and all that's done there. And of course, Tales of the Tribunal, which we have some special projects that are coming out in 2025, one more before the year ends. But yeah, Tales of the Tribunal. And of course, if you've listened to it, I'm going to say it's Tales of the Tribunal.
Fantastic. As we enter the last block of questions, I just want to make a technical announcement. For these next questions, there is no right answer. We are going to let Chris tell you which one he thinks is the right answer or comment on all the possible answers. And this is just going to be our way of discussing career options and how to develop our career in arbitration, thanks to our wonderful host, Chris, and his advice. So just so you know, there's no score, there's no right answer, but please do vote anyway, and so that we can, keep the discussion going. And with that, back to you again, Chris.
Well, before it goes back to me, I've got a question for you, Jessica. It's the holidays. What is your favorite holiday character? Is it Rudolph? Is it Santa? Is it Frosty? Charlie Brown? We want to know from you.
Well, you're not gonna like it, but it's the Grinch.
The Grinch. Is it because he's got that great theme song? You're a
Yeah.
mean one, Miss
It definitely
Rado.
got the theme song, and I like it because, well, he lives alone with a dog. I mean, that's perfect. That's just me, literally there. And then, at the end, even though he's an outsider, he still comes together with people, which is kind of like me.
He
Kind
saves
of
the town. He saves the town at the end.
So, yep, the Grinch. The Grinch it is.
That's a solid one. They have the original version of it, the animated one, has a really great clarinet solo in the song. I love it.
I've asked you to play it. It could have been the
Well,
theme song for this holiday special.
yeah, you're right. Okay, on to the final section, which to Jessica's point, we'll have some more involvement for me in answering these questions. So as we go, for recent graduates applying to arbitration roles, what is the single thing that stands out in their resume? And there are several options, so we'll take 20 seconds on the clock. The arbitration classes that they took in law school, the fact that they completed an LLM in arbitration, any relevant arbitration experience, and their grades in law school. And so I guess this will be a little bit of a test of how well, in this brief interaction that we're having, can you guess what's in the mind of Chris Campbell? What is Chris going to say here? So we'll come in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you're right. I guess you guys read my mind perfectly. Any relevant arbitration experience. That's exactly what my answer would be to that question. And we can get there by process of elimination. I'll give you some explanation. Grades in law school, frankly, after I think that first job, maybe the second job, no one really asks about them, especially if you do good work. It's just not something that, in my experience, has been something that folks ask about too frequently. The arbitration classes that you took in law school, especially for that first role, could be relevant because it goes to the point of the experience that you might have with the field and the familiarity that you have with it. The fact that you completed an LLM in arbitration maybe is helpful, but what is valuable there is sort of the relationships that you've made, and again, the experience that you might get. Now, when I say experience, what I'm thinking of, what I hear, is not necessarily that you've worked on an arbitration case, that you have necessarily worked as part of an arbitration team, but maybe what is your familiarity with the field and the topic? Have you maybe written a small piece? It doesn't necessarily need to be a long article, but a short note. Have you gone to events? Have you helped with projects? Any of those types of things are also experience. And so when I am talking to junior lawyers or students that are thinking about going into the field, I say that, look, it could take some time to get that first role, but you can create your own opportunity by giving yourself experience, by doing things that are adjacent to the field, that support the field, helping them conduct surveys, run other projects, joining any one of the many alphabet soup of organizations, whether that be almost all of the major arbitral institutions have young member organizations that you can join and be a part of. The IBA does as well. There are plenty in the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. I mean, yeah, we could go down a whole list because it's been a session just talking about the different orgs. So I think that's a great way. If you don't have a job directly already in the field or with these types of organizations, give yourself some own experience, your own experience.
Fantastic. On to the next.
Okay. What should students do while in law school to prepare for a career in arbitration? And is it take any international law or international arbitration courses, participate in moot competitions? Is it network with peers? Or D, The dreaded answer on every multiple choice question or test. All of the above. Ooh, all of the above, none of the above, some of the above. Mm. All right, so I think we've got our answers here. The answer is all of the above. Every single one of these things are things that you should be thinking about doing and participating with if you're interested in a career in international law and arbitration. From the MOOC perspective, the VIS that you've heard us talk about a few times is a great and more. Yes, exactly. Is a great way to break into the field. The Jessup is also a nice opportunity, but there's plenty of international law, international arbitration competitions that one can keep themselves busy with. Networking with peers, critical. You want to do that not only with people that are in your class, your professors, speakers that might come to your class, that might speak in your city. Attending webinars like this are all great ways to get to know folks and to take any international law courses, of course, because that's going to give you the subject matter expertise. And I will point out, I need to find the institution that issued this report, but it was saying something like the vast majority of job seekers are actually more and more finding their jobs through networking and through those relationships, as opposed to cold applications. Because as much of a great tool as AI can be, jobs in HR departments are often using AI and using them to filter out people. And so sometimes you're not even getting to see or land on someone's desk if you don't already have a relationship. So something to keep in mind.
I hope you're all taking notes because Chris is giving great advice, great, very practical advice. And thank you so much, Chris. This is great.
Well, you know, in-house counsel, we like to be practical.
Absolutely.
All right. What is one underrated skill that is key for a successful career in arbitration? Is it the ability to work under pressure? Is it project management skills? Is it knowledge of foreign languages? The ability to work in a team? Yeah. So again, there's not any singular right answer here, but excuse me, I guess by necessity, I've chosen one and I kind of couch my answer that way. So we'll give you about 10 more seconds to make a choice. Yeah, I like the colors here too. They're very festive, very bright, very demure.
I love that.
I know. My little brother's somewhere in the universe. They're 17, and I feel like they just had a shudder. They're like, our older brother just used a young person term. The answer here is the ability to work in a team, or that's my chosen answer anyway. And I'll give you some background on these. So knowledge of foreign languages, I think that is an underrated. I do think in general that's an underrated skill, but I don't think it's the most necessary. I know plenty of people that only speak one language or maybe do not have the most robust language assortment and work in the field, but it's certainly something that can open up some doors for you. The ability to work under pressure. Yeah, I mean, I think that reason no one chose that is because I think we all know that we work in a high pressure environment, and so that's kind of just a given. I think we all assume that that's what everyone has, and that you should be able to do that. But yeah, you do need to have that ability too, and to not sort of take on bad habits mentally or physically in working under these situations. Project management skills. That is a very attractive answer, and it's my second answer here in this category. So yes, but I think the project management skills are within the context of working within your team. So you can be really good at managing a project, but if that's not what your team needs you to do, then you need to take the instruction that's given to you by your managing partner or lead associate or your in-house counsel, whoever's giving you the project. And you got to understand your role. And so I think that's something that's really often overlooked by young lawyers and junior lawyers joining teams, law firms, and companies is that sometimes they feel like they either need to master everything or they don't know where they're supposed to start. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the instructing attorney, whether that be the client or the person you're reporting to, what is your role in this? How can you best support the team? And making sure that you do the best that you possibly can in that role. Don't worry about trying to do other people's role. Do what you have been asked to do. Clarify, ask all the questions you want about making sure that you do that role well and crush it. You want to do it as well as you can. So that way, the more that you do, the more that you'll be trusted with and the more experience that you'll get. All right. So, how should a recent graduate approach their job search for a position in international arbitration? Is it A, through networking? B, starting with case management roles in arbitral institutions, starting as a tribunal secretary, or applying for an internship at big law firms. So we'll give you some time, 20 seconds to do that. All right, people are listening. People are paying attention to the answers that I'm giving. I see that. And especially based on the data that we were talking about a little bit before. 10, 9, 8. These are good questions. These are really helpful. I think these are probably the ones that people are thinking about a lot. So I think the answer is A, through networking, is what we'll go for purposes of this this exercise. But I think all these are not bad ways to go about it to start, especially if you don't know exactly what you want to do or where you want to go in the field. Applying for internships. Big law is very particular. So a lot of law firms will take the idea that big law is all that there is and that's the only thing that exists. The advice that I give to my mentees or to younger lawyers is that your key responsibility right out of law school in that first 3 to 5 years is to learn how to lawyer, because arbitration and ADR more generally are more complex and advanced techniques. And so in order to take on those advanced techniques, you need to demonstrate and show that you know how to manage a case, how to do very basic lawyer stuff first. Because here's the issue, and in fact, this would be, I think, the double-edged sword if you were to get a job immediately in international arbitration or something advanced like that, is that you might miss out on those critical skills on how to lawyer. And so what becomes a challenge is if at year 6, 7, 8, you're asked to do things that are not strictly arbitration and you never learned those basics of how to lawyer, then people sort of wonder what else you don't know and if you're a capable lawyer on your own. So that's always the caution point that I give to lawyers as they're starting out, is that yes, we want you to be in the field. Please do join us, but you need that time to really learn your basic fundamentals first. Tribunal secretary, that's a great option, because you're going to get a lot of that feedback and learn a lot of stuff from sitting with a tribunal. Again, in my mind, I would think a tribunal secretary is something that you would want to look for after you've learned some of those fundamentals in a law firm context. But, it's not bad. But it just, for me, that's not the first thing you want to start with right out of school. Case management roles at institutions. Yeah, that could be a good role. That could be a good fit. You're going to get to see good lawyering, bad lawyering. You're going to see a lot of different stuff. And you get to see a lot of things. I'm not going to give you the whole spiel again on networking. I said a lot of those things earlier in the day. I think that is a huge superpower, especially if you're active on LinkedIn. And I think that that's a great way to get access to people that you wouldn't necessarily have access to. And I will say, and Mandy's heard me say this many times, your point in reaching out to people or in that first conversation, never, 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 if you're taking in nothing else from my comments today, do not ask them for a job the first time you were reaching out to them. Do not do that. In fact, I don't think you ever should ask them for a job specifically. I would say you reach out to them, say, hey, you were an interesting person, or I find your work or your firm interesting. Can we have digital coffee? I heard you're going to be at this event. Can we talk? Start there. And if you guys have a rapport, if you hit it off, it'll become obvious if there's an opportunity that they might have in mind for you, or there's something that they can recommend you for. But like, you never start off with that in your first 1 or even 2 conversations. You want to get to know the person. And if that opportunity presents itself, it'll be obvious and evident. And plus, it's just good to know people. You don't have to go into it so transactional. Okay, next.
Advice. I'm just gonna give a tech reminder here. This is a word cloud. So here you're gonna be typing something, and I'm gonna let Chris tell the question.
Okay, in one word, how do you feel about your path to a career in arbitration? And if you will put your answers in the chat, we are gonna make a word cloud. I like word clouds. They're always so fun to make you feel like, I don't know, like you're a tech whiz or something. Like you can do cool stuff. One word about arbitration and what you feel about your path to a career in arbitration. Is me reading the question a second time as if I did something different. I hope you all have had fun. This has been a lot of fun to put my hosting cap back on. This is, hosting in a different context. Some of you, if you were at the ICC conference, I guess that was 2022 now, you will know that I did a Jeopardy impersonation. And we did Jeopardy with some arbitration folks in Manhattan, and that was a lot of fun. And I had a big sign that said Jeopardy, and I put in a little suit like Alex Trebek. It was fun. For those of us that watch Jeopardy, growing up. That was a great experience. And we're getting some answers in here, and we'll come to that. We'll give it just about 10 more seconds, and we'll get to the word cloud. I like it. It kind of looks like a cloud, actually. Oh, yeah. I see a little storm coming. All right. All right. So, what are some of the words that you all are putting in here? Okay. Oh, it's moving. Oh, well, all right. All right. I see. I see. It's political. It can be political. I think that's one of the frustrating things that I do think is about the field is that sometimes it can be a little bit of a game of who you know. But one of the things I think you can combat that is what we've been talking about today is I think creating your own opportunities and doing things that you're interested in and finding your people that you get along with, and not being so obsessed with being one of the popular people or one of the in crowd. I mean, that's something I think we can kind of control that narrative a little bit. Difficult. Yeah, it is challenging. There are a lot of things that are hard about the field, but I think it's rewarding work as well. Intimidating, confusing. Well, yeah, I mean, I think those are real, but I would say to you, if you're feeling that way, things like careers in arbitration, a lot of the organizations we've talked about today, the young groups that exist, those are great places to start just getting to know the field a little bit. And great advice that I've been given is just that's a great way to break into any field, not just arbitration, but to be adjacent to it, to just be around. And the more you're around it, you'll see, is this something I like? Do I like the people here? Do I like this work? Is this something I really want to spend my time doing? And I think that's a great way is to just kind of hang around. And the more that you're around, the more that you learn, the more that you'll see opportunities that do exist. Optimistic. I'm optimistic about it too. I think it's the future. I think it's going to continue to bridge gaps across different countries. Network based. That's true. Opaque. Um, and let's see. Enthusiastic. Yeah, I think it's enthusiastic. I think people that are really into it, that really believe in all this international arbitration world, I think that's we are pretty excitable people about the field. And I think I agree it's also interesting. And so that's the last question of the day. Thanks to everybody for joining, and we'll wrap up here in just a moment. But that was the final question. I don't know. Did we keep score? Did anybody keep score? I don't think we did. No results.
No, that might be my issue, but
No,
Nobody
that's okay.
disclosed their name.
Well, it was never about the destination. It was always about the journey and the friends we made along the way. G.I. Joe. Anyway, anyway, thank you all for putting up with my silliness. It was a pleasure hanging out with you. I hope that as we approach the end of the year, it's a great opportunity to reset, to mentally sort of focus on what you want to do in 2025. Take some time away. Even if you're going hard, working in a lot of different stuff, take a step back, spend that time with friends, with family, and make some small but achievable goals. I mean, I don't think you need to say you're going to go be an associate next year in international arbitration. I think maybe just focus on I'm going to join a group or I'm going to write something small and start your path that way. I think another big thing is to just say, well, look, you are where you are right now, but that doesn't mean you want to be in the same place in a year. And I think sometimes just being around the field, like we've talked about a few times, is a great way to get started with that. So without further ado, I know we're at our time. I appreciate you letting me hang out with you guys and hang out with us. If you want to connect with me, like I said, I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. You can hang out with me on Tales of the Tribunal in the podcast land. And I'm going to hand over back to Jessica and Mandy to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Chris. You've been a wonderful host. Spoiler alert, I knew that because I was lucky enough to attend in Arbitration Jeopardy in New York Arbitration Week a couple years back, where Chris was just phenomenal. So thank you so much for hosting this and for joining us today. You were terrific with the advice and tips. I really hope everybody took notes because you gave very practical and very insightful tips. Since we're still recording, I'm gonna give it back to Mandy so that we can close it up, and after that, maybe we can say goodbye to our audience. Mandy?
Thank you very much. Well, it's not every day that I get to compose a version of musical theatre involving the word popular that somehow gets adapted to arbitration. So I'm happy to have been able to do that in the chat. It's always a pleasure to do anything with fabulous Chris Campbell. Chris and I tend to cross paths in all sorts of unexpected jurisdictions. I think once in Vienna, I heard you calling from the top of some stairs and started sort of spinning, trying to work out where the noise was coming from. So we never quite know what will happen. There was also the meeting in New York where we then proceeded to have to deal with, I think, a hurricane afterwards, and got completely drenched when heading off in our respective directions. So life is always an adventure when Chris is around, and he's provided us with some absolutely fabulous tips today. So thank you so much for joining us, Chris. And thank you, as always, to Jess for putting this fabulous episode for the holidays together so that everybody could have a little bit of festive fun before we all focus on setting those all-important arbitration goals for 2025. And no doubt you will be seeing some content on the Careers in Arbitration feed that starts asking you about things like, what is your arbitration goal for 2025? So stay tuned for those top tips soon. Thank you all so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting us during 2024. And we hope to see you again for more episodes of 1,000 Paths to a Career in Arbitration in 2025.
Take care.